This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
India is the fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world. The fastest growing, yes, you heard it right. It also has the third largest number of startups anywhere on the globe. Now, many are asking if this is the best time to turn entrepreneur to start up in India. The cynics are saying, is the startup ecosystem heating up a tad too quickly? Well, whichever side of divide you're on, this is the best time, of course, to take part in the show. Send us your thoughts, tweet us. You can write to us on Facebook and also SMS us what you think about this. Let's get started right away. Joining me on the program, Ritesh Agarwal, founder OYO Rooms, and also Samyukth Sridharan, President and Chief Operating Officer, Cleartrip. Thanks both so much for taking our time to speak to us. Ritesh, you made a very interesting point, minutes before we started. You said that you feel that you're a marketplace child yourself. Tell us a bit about that, because I'm sure there are lots of people out there who can relate with what you just said.
Yeah, so I think over the last 1 year, I think everything that I use as a part of my day period is related to one or the other startup, and there is a startup for that, and that does way better consumer experience, way better pricing than anything else which are current opportunities available for me to use. And that is frankly what disruption is, right? That you take something which is a real problem on the ground, you solve it for a user, you build an optimum pricing around it.
Right.
And you continue delivering that over and over again.
Right.
So I sleep at OYO's. I have breakfast with one of the food delivery startups. I have grocery from a grocery startup. I travel and commute via one of the cab startups. Like there is a startup for everything today.
Right.
And quite frankly, they deliver way better quality of experiences than any other opportunity that I had earlier.
Right. Mr. Sridharan, as someone who's been watching this space closely, why do you think there's been such an intense focus on startups in the last couple of years, especially say in the last 2 years? What really has shifted?
I think a few things, right? And we've been here for about 9 years and we've seen it evolve as we've evolved. I think the biggest change today is the fact that information is democratic and it's accessible. I think that is essentially what is ensuring that you have a million different ideas that are coming out every day, right? Any business, any startup, or any of us in the e-commerce space you look at, the underlying theme is change has been driven by technology.
Right.
And change has been, in India, very clearly proved that technology gets adopted much quicker than anywhere else in the world.
So in this space, Ritesh, if I may ask, there's once you're out there, your idea is out there, and then, they do say that imitation is the best form of flattery. It's just out there. So in this kind of a competitive environment where, you may sort of, it's not easy to, how far do you really keep the first mover advantage really going? How does one sort of keep innovating, keep evolving? How do you stay one step ahead of your game?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I think the best thing about startups, so like just to take a next step, today starting a company has become easier than ever before. Especially because India's largest supermarket might not be real retail stores, that might be a mobile app.
Right.
India's largest hotel chain today is actually, which is us. We are not a real brick and mortar thing. Right?
Sure.
India's largest cab company is not a real taxi owning company.
Correct.
So our sense is, as this grows over a period of time, the real value is going to be able to sort of innovate, do the best things for the consumers. If you are the most loved brand in your space, frankly, nothing else matters.
Is that worrying? Unlike, say, there was to a brick and mortar space, because lots of people have said it's fluid. I mean, you have all the apps, and you can sort of like switch from one to the other. Unlike saying, is that
No, so I would tend to disagree there, right? I think even in the space that we are in, while information is democratic, there are ways you can build brand loyalty. Yes, consumers will go and see what else is out there, but if you focus on solving his problem, and if you really deliver it in a no fuss, very simple, easy to use kind of an approach, I think consumers will come back to you again.
Well, let's just take a moment now to introduce Upasana Taku, founder of ZacPay and co-founder of MobiKwik. Thanks very much, Upasana. I know that traffic can be a bit of a nightmare, but You know, I was reading something that you'd said about women in a startup space and what your journey's been, and you described it, you know, which I think is sort of really nailing it. You said courage under fire. Yeah, has it been particularly tough, you think, because you're a woman?
Not necessarily. I think that the world and India as we speak is flat, and I don't really feel a difference being a man versus a woman. India can be a big enabler. Obviously, there are security and infrastructure issues you have to deal with, but then every woman decides, you know, how she wants to cope with it. So you have to operate in the, you know, in the structure that you work and live in.
So apart from, I mean, you're saying that being a woman, of course, not really a liability here, but what would you say then has been your biggest challenge on your startup journey so far?
So I mean, there will be challenges at some point. So for example, I'm also a tech entrepreneur. I'm also an engineer by education, but there will be times when people might question that, especially engineers in my own team. But you know, I have to be able to cope with that with reason and logic, and not necessarily that, you know, listen to me because I'm a co-founder. But I think that's healthy. I think that it's okay to be questioned by people in your organization, people in the ecosystem, and you have to be able to stand up on your own merit.
Which is of course the case, you know, which will in most ideal situations at work. But Ritesh, if I could ask you and then Samyukth, what is your biggest challenge? What has it been? I mean, which is the one moment where you sort of torn your hair out and said that I don't know whether I can carry on? Has that happened? I would imagine.
Actually not. Of course, there are challenges all over the place. But I have gone through situations which are really worse, and I think that is the part of startups which people realize once they get into this play, because it looks very exciting from the outside. But when you get in, so I was 18 when I started the company, right? 2.5 years back. A couple of months hence, I went broke. And I was in Delhi. I didn't have any friends, etc. My family is based out of Orissa. So I actually slept on stairs for 1.5 weeks before I found somebody who could help me with some savings. Because if I called my home, they just said, "Dude, come back."
Come back.
Yeah. And I could not do that.
That's the stuff that legends are made of, right?
Sorry?
I mean, sleeping out under the skies, and when you write, I think like your opening autobiography, I can just see the first chapter and what it's going to play out. But
like
you never thought of giving up.
Actually not, because you know, here's what I always kept thinking, right? You have this opportunity of solving something in this world for the first time, right? And then some of these things, I felt if it doesn't go where it, you know, I mean, where I aspire to build it to, I'd have actually learned a lot, and I was learning a lot during that period, and I continue to, right? Like at 21, building India's largest hotel brand. I think it's something that I had never imagined in the past, but I definitely knew that being a part of this would enable me to become a better person and create a massive impact, which is indirect employment for 50,000 people, direct employment for more than 1,000 people. I think that is something that I always aspired to build. And I felt if that did not happen, I'll learn a lot, and I could always go back and do the usual thing that people do.
Right. Mr. Sridharan, do you think that there's a shift here? There are people who are not, I think the one thing that connects or is sort of similar to all startups usually have in common is the fact that they know they're taking a huge risk. They're still doing it, shying away or rejecting other more secure jobs, which is traditionally what we have preferred in India. So is that one big shift, you think?
Not so much in these days, right? I think maybe 10 years back, I think the environment was probably not conducive to taking those large risks. I think today, the kind of people that we meet, people across this table, I think there is a very clear understanding of the risk reward, right? And there's a conscious choice that people made. Ritesh didn't stumble into it, right? It was a conscious choice that he made,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
I think there are a few things that are coming together, right? I think we mentioned it some time back. I think the fact that technology today is a much bigger enabler than what it was 10 years back.
Right.
To my mind, if you were to ask me what is the biggest challenge that we face as an organization 9.5 years down the line, I think the biggest challenge is settling for status quo, right? And that is probably true of everything that you see in the startup ecosphere today, right? As businesses which were disruptors, if we believe that that gives us a free pass to Wonderland,
Right.
I'm not too sure we're going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
We have to constantly keep looking at where is the next disruption and how can I participate in the next disruption.
Right.
And for businesses like us, which have been at the forefront of all of this, how can I, while building an organization that obviously has financial responsibility and all of that, how can I build innovation into everything that we do
Right.
on a daily
Upasana,
basis?
is that something that plays on your mind also? What next? I mean, we discussed this a little earlier when you still hadn't joined us, but is that something that plays on your mind also? How am I going to sort of stay ahead? What do I do next? What is the next big thing coming out of my stable?
Yeah, so I think constant product innovation and building out the right features that people will adopt and use is definitely important. So what we were thinking 3 years ago when we were looking at acquiring 5 million users was clearly different when we were looking at acquiring 30 million users. And now when we are thinking about how are we going to get the next 100 million users, the new innovations that we have to do have to be completely different. For example, we were banking a lot on converting inactive banked users, for example, people who use their cards as ATM cards but never use it for shopping, online, offline, and getting them to become wallet users. Now we are thinking about cash users, and we are actually setting up services where we are enabling people to add cash into their MobiKwik wallet and then use it for all their digital shopping. So from that point of view, yes, you have to constantly be ahead of the curve, because whatever you do, your competitors will try to copy.
Absolutely.
And the only way to stay ahead is to, figure out those trends or things that will make a huge difference before everybody else.
Right, to have some foresight really is I would imagine.
Just
very
wanted
important.
to make one point, if I may. I actually disagree with what he was saying in terms of taking the risk and plunge. I think, so today I have a bunch of friends who are now starting their startups. And I see them going through the same challenges of hiring people that I went through when I was hiring the first 5 people or first 20 people. I think once an organization reaches some scale, has some PR,
then it just perhaps
going,
become. In fact, just
people
hold
start
that thought,
jumping
because I need to take a quick break now. But that's something that we'll look at more closely after this quick break. So come right back.